Benita's mind swirled with disbelief. Oma, noticing her reaction, asked if she knew the couple. Benita, lost in a mix of confusion and shock, shook her head, then nodded. Oma continued excitedly, oblivious to Benita's inner turmoil. Well, let me tell you about them. Their gist is strong. Oh. This lady is very lucky. This guy pampers her so much. Every month she's vacationing in a different country. I heard he doesn't even let her work. She just lives the baby girl life. Some people are so lucky, oh, she continued. God, when is it going to be my turn, eh? And I know your daughter too. I don't understand this partial treatment, oh. Giving some everything and others nothing. Unable to bear the conversation any longer, Benita accurately stood up and staggered home, her mind reeling from the revelation. The betrayer cut deep. Nneoma, her trusted friend, and Frank, the man she had loved, now together and expecting a child. The pain came rushing back, threatening to overwhelm her once again. Her mother, who had been relaxing under the mango tree in their compound, noticed Benita's unusual behavior when she came back. Concerned, she had followed her daughter inside, asking, "Benny, what is the matter?" But Benita didn't respond, lay down on the bed, and in a sudden outburst of anguish began to trash the place, blind to her mother's presence. Unable to get her to stop, her mother had become alarmed, and she ran out of the room to get her phone and called Abel, Benita's eldest brother, who lived nearby. Abel was on his way home when he received the distress call from their mother. Finding their father already there, unable to calm Benita down, Abel, shocked at what he was witnessing, hurried into Benita's room and lifted her off the floor, carrying her out of the chaos. He sat down in the sitting room and held her tightly to himself, absorbing her struggles. At some point, she must have gotten too tired and just went limp in her brother's arms. Giving in to the despair now, Benita cried like she wanted to die. She cried as if her world had ended, the pain threatening to consume her. Her mother, not knowing what had caused such distress, joined her daughter in crying. The men held them, worry etched on their faces. Her father sat beside Abel, gently stroking Benita's hair. Though she wasn't one of the elders, Benita had always been the strongest emotionally. Her upbeat outlook in life, a source of strength for the family. Nothing gets to his Benny because of her hopeful outlook at life. It was only Frank he saw who broke her, almost breaking her spirit in the process. So what new thing is this that had happened again? She was almost back to her usual self. What would have happened to warrant this much pain, he pondered, getting angry. If another man, or anyone else for that matter, had hurt his precious daughter again, he would not take it lying down, he thought angrily, standing up abruptly and began to pace the sitting room. Papa Soma, please sit down and stop creating more tension, his wife said, getting angry too, amidst her tears. But the elder man ignored her, knowing that any response from him would trigger a backlash. She's looking for who she will use as a target practice, but it is not going to be him today. But he sat down nevertheless. Some hours later, Benita found herself surrounded by her family. Her siblings who lived nearby had all rushed to the family house, knowing that anything causing Benita to behave so strangely must be dealt with immediately. Benita, now much calmer, recounted what she had seen on her friend's phone. She mentioned the social media handle, or was it a YouTube channel, where the picture was posted. When they looked it up, there it was, Frank and her childhood friend Nneoma together, with Nneoma visibly pregnant, and other videos and pictures of them in different locations. Her mother screamed in shock, and each of her siblings expressed their disbelief in different ways. For a long minute no one spoke, the house falling into a heavy silence. A passerby might have thought the house was empty during those few minutes. How dare she? Sophie, the youngest sibling, suddenly exclaimed, startling everyone. How can a human be this wicked? Sister Benny, we will not allow this. How can your own friend snatch your fiance from you and pretend to be there? How? But before she could finish, Benita interrupted. Sophie, nobody snatched anybody. Frank is a fully grown adult who made a choice. Nobody is going to do anything. That pain I just expressed was my goodbye to Frank and Nneoma. I lived in pain these 2 years because I didn't know what my offense was. So I retained him in my heart, thinking I was the one at fault. But now that I have been set free, they deserve each other, and they will be their own doom. Abel, in spite of himself, began to clap. Why is this one clapping? Their eldest sister Soma exclaimed. Please stop it. But sis, can't you see what I'm saying? Abel said, his eyes shining with pride. What are you seeing? Their mother asked. Abel laughed and hugged Benita. I am seeing a triumphant woman. A woman who refused to be less. A strong woman. Big bro, please leave me alone, Benita laughed, shrugging out of his embrace. But I'm serious, Abel continued. I think I understand what you mean, their father interjected, his face thoughtful. If it was someone else, they would have felt cheated, that their friend was enjoying what was supposed to be theirs. But here, I hope it is not me you people are calling the weak woman here, Sophie murmured, interrupting her father. Her father eyed her and continued. But here is our Benny, rejecting it because she cannot accept a man who was that cheap. Benita smiled, almost shy with the way everyone started singing her praise. But in the midst of this, Sophie still expressed her desire to deal with the betraying couple. Because I don't understand how all of you are here smiling as if nobody understands the level of betrayal Sister Benny just experienced, she ranted. If it is me, oh, well, thank the Lord it is not you, Soma interrupted. When it happens, God forbid. No man or woman will ever try such with me, Sophie shouted. Yes, oh my daughter, none of you will ever go through such again, their mother said, putting a final note to the banter. And with that, what was originally supposed to be a sad and mournful gathering turned to mini celebration. The music was turned on and wine bottles were opened. David, who was the only one that was not present because living outside the country, was lamenting on how he is missing out over the phone. And so the family, seeing Benita's resolve and strength, rallied round her, providing the support and love she needed to fully move on. Benita felt a renewed sense of peace, knowing she had her family by her side and the inner strength to overcome any challenge. Truly, that picture surprisingly set Benita free from her past, and from that day she began to truly heal from her wounds. She returned to her usual cheerful self, much to the delight of her family. Her mother in particular felt a mixture of relief and joy. When Frank had broken their engagement, the trauma it caused Benita was severe, and despite their best efforts to reach out to Frank, they had been unsuccessful. So they had resorted to helping their daughter heal. But seeing her in this form now has restored her peace beyond imagination. But initially skeptical of Benita's newfound cheerfulness, her mother had watched her closely, praying that the change was genuine and not just a facade. Over time, she became convinced that Benita's happiness was real. Her prayers seemed to have been answered as she witnessed her daughter's true healing. Benita's siblings, on their part, not wanting to take anything for granted, made a point to spend quality time with her. They took her out, included her in family gatherings, and called often to check on her when they couldn't be there in person. Benita saw their efforts and felt deeply grateful for the support system she had. Though she tried to reassure them that she was really okay, She understood that they needed time to reconcile their past fears with the current reality of her healing. So she let them pamper her and smother her with love and attention, appreciating the bond that had only grown stronger through adversity. Benita moved forward with a renewed sense of hope, ready to embrace whatever the future held. It's been 3 years after the picture incident. Benita, who just returned from the US where she went to for an official training, which will give her access to top partnership management in her company, was relaxing with her mom on a weekend watching a movie she doesn't even understand. But her mom seemed to be enjoying it, so she had relaxed, using her mom's laps as pillow, enjoying the pure bliss of having her mom all to herself. She can't remember the last time she had that luxury. If it is not her dad interrupting, be sure that it is Sophie who manages to sniff competition, as she terms it, from a million miles away. She's even shocked that that one has not shown up already. Benita smiled happily, looking at her mom, who seemed to be in a very happy mood since she came back. She realized they had gotten so busy that they hardly find time to spend with their parents anymore. So this weekend, she had decided to spend a quality time with them before the hustle continues on Monday. But her dad had gone to the estate meeting for landlords that Saturday, so mother and daughter were there enjoying each other's company when they heard a bang at the gate. Benita had rushed out to go see who it was, and was shocked to see Nneoma's mom and sister standing there. She immediately wanted to shut the gate, but they were quick to hold on to it. The elderly woman kneeling down immediately, her face a marks of pain. "Please, my daughter," she pleaded. "Please have mercy." By this time, Benita's mom had peeked from the window, curious as to why her daughter was still at the gate. When she saw some persons kneeling down, she quickly came out to know what is happening, and met with the same shock that Benita had. She exclaimed, "Cecilia, what are you doing in my compound? You and your cursed generation. How did you people find out where I live?" And in great anger, she pushed Benita inside, shutting the gate. "Go inside right now," she shouted at her daughter. "Let me deal with these wicked entities myself." Benita obeyed, partially feeling pity for the people outside, because her mom, though very slow to anger, was a full hurricane when provoked. She doesn't even want to be caught on its path. She went in and quickly called her siblings on conference call to give them the latest gist. Their eldest sister, Soma, had promised to come later in the day to hear the full story, but Sophie, who was at the gym, had quickly stopped her exercises and made a beeline for the family house. She said she likes witnessing things herself. She doesn't want a watered-down version of the drama. "I don't blame you. You are just a pure gossip," Soma had rebuked her. Sophie laughed. "You are just jealous because I am single and can move whenever I want. You are tied down with family. That is why you are not already at home. But I forgive you, my lovely big sister." She laughed and disconnected as she went out and drove off from the gym. Soma hissed and told Benita to better warn her sister, or she would collect from her hand. Benita tried her best not to laugh as hard as she wanted to. What had just happened was regular between those two. If you were not informed, you might choose a side, and they will use your matter to settle their fake quarrel. The rest of the family had learned not to intervene in their matters again, having each been burnt by it before. Meanwhile, back at the scene outside the gate, Benita's mom faced Cecilia and Nneoma's sister. "What do you want?" she demanded. "Please, we need your help," Cecilia sobbed. "Nneoma is in trouble and she claims it is only Benita that can help." Benita's mom crossed her arms, her face hard. "After what your daughter did to mine, you think you can come here and ask for help?" "We were wrong, I know," Cecilia admitted, tears streaming down her face. "But Nneoma is sick. She's been abandoned by Frank and his family. We have nowhere else to turn." "And so, where did you hear that Benita is a medical doctor?" Or has my house turned into a hospital overnight? Ruth queried angrily, getting ready to push them out of her sight. You don't understand, Cecilia began. And I do not want to understand. I don't want to understand though. Take your cursed selves out of my entrance before you attract what you are to my family. As she made to push them, she heard her husband's voice calling her from the street. She looked up and waited for him to approach them. John looked at the scene before him and tried to make the kneeling woman get up, but they refused. So he turned to his wife and gently asked for explanation. My dear, you cannot believe it. If you know who these two witches are, you will not even be standing here as calmly as you are. That is why I am asking. I want to know, her husband said patiently. This is Nneoma's mother and her sister. What? John exclaimed. Oh ho! I told you, his wife replied, stretching forth both hands in exclamation. Very shameless generation, she concluded, raising her nose in disgust, tapping her feet impatiently. What gave you people the impetus to show your faces before any member of my family? He bellowed, frightening the women so much that Cecilia jumped up, stumbling on her knees. Her daughter screamed, straightening to catch her mother. Meanwhile, Benita, who had heard her father's voice, was already rushing out to the gate, encouraged by Soma and David, who were still on call with her. Soma already getting her keys ready to go see Granddada and Mama. She couldn't wait to get to the house. She wished her husband was around. She would have already been there. This parenting journey is not easy, she lamented to herself. Benita and David were just laughing at her. Benita got to the gate just as the drama started. Soma shouted for her to place the camera well and kept directing her where to turn and where to face all through the process. They better not let me see them there when I come, Soma was saying over the phone, or Daddy's bellow will be like a child's squeals. Because if I meet them there, the whole estate will gather to hear their story. You better tell them that, Benny, she concluded as she drove out of her compound, disconnecting herself from the call. Benita made to go and help the fallen elderly woman, but her mother blocked her path. Eh? Where do you think you're going? Mother Teresa, helper of the helpless. Her mother hailed her mockingly. I thought I told you to go inside. But Mom, if you bought me there again, you will receive a knock that will shock your entire brain this instant. You have not finished recovering from your initial kindness to them. You want to go again? It is not me you will kill before my time. Come and go and help them again, let me see. Ruth shouted angrily, looking at her daughter, not even understanding one bit the kind of heart this daughter of hers has. These were the same people that nearly sent her to an early grave when she discovered Nneoma's atrocious betrayal. Now she wants to go and help Nneoma's mother, so maybe this time they will take her life, since there was no man around to grab, but it would be over her dead body. That Benita will have anything to do with these people again. So she stood in her way, tying a scarf around her waist, placing both hands on either side of her waist, waiting for Benita to make any stupid move again. They were in this pose when Sophie drove in, or parked by the roadside and rushed out of the car, making a beeline for the women who were now standing, with the younger holding the older to prevent her from falling again. But before she could get to them, her father, who had sighted her, rushed and held her, dragging her into. I don't want to see even your shadow outside this gate, he warned her sternly, wondering how she got to the house so quick, but he will sort that one out later. Daddy, please leave me. God has answered my prayers. Don't be a stumbling block to God's answered prayers, Sophie said, jumping up and down to bypass the old man. I have told you, her father said, and went back outside. Sister Benny, I hope Sister Soma is on her way. You and Daddy should just stay out of the way when she comes, because she will tear all of you apart. Let these people just leave now, no, for their own good. Sophie said, and went to stand with their mother to see what their dad planned on doing. Woman, you will have to go home today. As you can see, My children are not happy to see you people here. Please go home. We will discuss this at some other time, John said to Cecilia and her daughter. But sir, I don't mind being beaten to death by anyone. I deserve it. Because I'm the one who chose to turn a blind eye to my daughter's ways, even though I should have cautioned her and stopped her from doing what she did. So any penalty I receive, I will bear no grudge. But please, have mercy on my daughter Nneoma. She is suffering so much and death refused to claim her. She has not suffered though. What she has seen so far is a preamble. The real suffering is on training. Don't worry, it will visit you people very soon. Benita's mother interjected. And it is not in my house that you will die. So you better find your way out of here before I call the security. Mother, let's go please, Nneoma's sister pleaded with her mom. We will come again when they are calmer, as their dad has said. You can't force them to come in this mood. Please, let's go now. Cecilia was crying uncontrollably, but she allowed her daughter to steer her away from the angry family. When they had gone, John followed his family inside, pondering on what Cecilia had said. 30 minutes after, Soma drove in and immediately rushed into the sitting room, hoping to see Nneoma's mom and her sister, but was disappointed when she met only her family there. Oh, they are lucky. I would have torn them to shreds. What shamelessness! To show their faces here, she ranted, breathing heavily. Tigress, we know what you can do, but where are my grandchildren? Their dad demanded. Oh my God, Soma screamed and ran outside. But she met them at the door with Benita, who had immediately gone outside to get her niece and nephew when she saw the way her sister had barged in without them. Benita had apologized to them and promised them a treat as she was unbuckling them from their car seat. I'm so sorry, my sweets, their mom said, kneeling down to hug them. Mom is very sorry, okay? Okay, mommy, they had both chorused. Come here, my little mutkins, their Aunt Sophie had said, sliding down from the chair and spreading her arms. But instead of them to run to her, they had run straight to their grandparents who were behind Sophie, smiling with arms spread wide to receive them. Sophie stood up, turned back in mock anger and said, So your grannies are now more important than me, eh? But when you want pizza and ice cream, Aunt Sophie will begin to rain. It is all right. As she made to go, the kids ran, laughing to her, tackling her to the floor. As they continued playing on the floor, laughing, as Sophie tickled them, their mom said, Just be ready to bat them when you finish, Sophie. They ignored her and she went to sit, asking Benita to tell her what she missed. Regretting that she had disconnected the call, she didn't expect to meet the kind of traffic she met on her way here. Benita filled her in, but as she was narrating, Sophie sat up and interrupted her. You are missing some parts. That is how you people would have given me a watered down version if I had not come on time. Madam Accurate Narrator, Oya, tell us what I missed, Benita retorted. Sophie ignored her and faced their mother. Mommy, the way I saw you with your scarf around your waist facing Benita, what were you trying to do? Wait, backtrack. Tell me everything from the beginning, Soma interrupted. Sophie, laughing now mischievously, began to tell Soma what she witnessed. The narrative was so funny that everyone was laughing very hard by the time she finished. So, Mommy, please, can you explain what your intentions were? Their mom, still laughing, said, I would have tackled her to the ground though, if that was what it would take to stop her pity party. Everyone busted into fresh bouts of laughter at the thought of their mother wrestling Benita. When they had all calmed down, after the back and forth teasing, their father cleared his throat to catch their attention. But before he could start, someone drove in and it turned out to be Abel. They waited till he entered and greetings were exchanged. He was filled in on what had transpired as he wasn't available to receive calls. He had decided to come straight home from work. So he suggested they call David back so no one would be exempted from the discussion that was about to begin. Which discussion? Soma asked. Why is there need for a discussion? I hope you people are not planning what I'm thinking. Calm down, my daughter, and listen to your father. Okay, oh, I am listening, Daddy, she said. Thank you. Their father began. You see, these people at the time of their supposed victory thought they had won. But men do not understand that victory belongs in the hand of the Almighty. He is the only one who knows the secret things, and He alone repays. We don't know what really happened that made Frank abandon Nneoma, and we don't know what kind of sickness that caught up with her. You see the way God fights for the innocent. Benita didn't have to do anything. She chose to forgive and move on, but look at the turn of events. I am not happy to hear that the young lady is sick, because I remember how good she was to my children when I couldn't feed them well. I will never forget that kindness from one so young, which is why I am pleading with all of you to calm down. Let's not stand in God's way now that He is moving. If my child was to be in a bad situation, I would desire that whoever that can help would help. Please, let's tread carefully, he concluded. Putting the entire household in somber mood, Benita felt a mix of emotion, anger, pity, confusion. What should we do? She asked in general. Her mom sighed and said, My daughter, sometimes the right thing to do is always the hardest. Let's help them, but let's help them on our own terms. Benita thought about it and nodded, her heart heavy. So they have sat and planned as a family on how they can go about rendering the said help. Their father suggested that Soma and Abel go to see Nneoma as to ascertain what really is the matter and how Benita can be of help. They all bought into the idea, but Benita insisted that she will be the one who will go with Abel. When she couldn't be dissuaded, they let her be, warning her to be extra careful. She will be with me the whole time. I won't let her out of my sight, Abel promised. That put their mother a little at ease. As the family began to make arrangements to help Nneoma, Benita couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. The wounds of the past had begun to heal, and perhaps this was the final step in letting go. After hashing out the plan, dinner was made and laughter once again returned to the home. Their contact was searched out through social media, and Benita's mom did the calling. We will help you, she had said, but understand this. It doesn't erase what was done. This is about humanity and not forgetfulness. Cecilia nodded carefully, grateful for the help. Thank you so much. And the call ended. 3 days later, Benita and her brother Abel stepped into the compound behind the person who came to pick them. Their noses were immediately assaulted with the pungent smell of burning meat. Benita wondered what they could be cooking, but continued to follow the person. From the sitting room, they were led to a room at the far end of the hallway, the smell getting stronger. Their guide gave them a nose mask and simply said, In case you need it. We are getting used to the odor. He opened the door, and Benita came face to face with a strange phenomenon. Lying and writing on the floor was a human form. It was only the painful moans and incoherent voice of the person that gave them the idea that it was a female. The person was moaning, Oh, I didn't know. If I had known, I would not have gone there. She was coiled in on herself, moaning so painfully. Benita and her brother Abel could not fathom what they were saying, because the entire surface area of the person, as far as the eye could see, looked like charred meat. The person on the floor, maybe sensing that there were people there, uncoiled gently and slowly, and when she opened her bloodshot eyes, she asked, Please, who are you people? Her voice hoarse. A strangled sound escaped Benita's throat, and she quickly covered her mouth with a hand even though she was wearing the mask. This cannot be, she thought incredulously, shaking her head in disbelief. Abel, who was able to recover much more quickly, asked the person gently, Are you Nneoma? The figure on the floor nodded. Yes, I am. Who are you? She managed to choke out, her voice so dim and distant One could see that she was barely managing to talk. Benita, at hearing the answer, fell on the floor and began to cry, not able to control it anymore. Abel bent down and held her shoulders as he responded to Norma's question. "This is Benita and her brother Abel." "Ah!" Norma screamed. "Benny, please have mercy on me. I have sinned against the heavens and the earth. I have wronged you and every law of sisterhood, but please forgive me. I am already in hell, oh, please." She stopped, unable to continue. Benita struggled to hold herself together and went closer to the writhing figure on the floor, but stopped short of touching her, not knowing how much pain she was in. "Norma, what is this? What happened to you? Did someone poison you? Were you in an accident? Please tell me how I can be of help. Let's forget about the past for now." As she was still talking, the young man who had escorted them earlier came in, carrying a tray filled with ashes. She told Benita and Abel to move towards the door, so that they won't be stained with the dust from the ashes. They obeyed and understood better when he began to pour the ashes on Norma from her head to her toes, making sure that it touched every part of her. When he was done, he dissolved some in a glass of water and helped her to sit up amidst her moans of pains. She drank the solution and laid back. The young man turned to them and said, "I am sorry I didn't introduce myself properly earlier. I was in a hurry to get back home so I could get these ashes for her. I am the only one at home today." "It's okay," Abel said, stretching his hand towards the young man, as Benita seemed so lost in thought. "I am Abel, and this is Benita, my sister." "I know, I am Timothy, Norma's younger brother." "Oh, you are that little Timothy that comes to play with Sophie." "Yes," he said, and smiled sadly. "I am sorry we are meeting again in such sad and shameful circumstances," Timothy said, looking rather ashamed. "Don't be. We are here to help, and we will do all we can to help your sister, okay? Thank you so much." He looked up surprised, gratitude written all over his face. Noma was trying to sit up now. Benita rushed over to help her, relieved to see that the pain seemed to have subsided and the burning odor had reduced drastically too. "Norma, please tell me what happened. How did you end up like this?" Benita asked, a zillion questions running through her mind. She just couldn't understand how a person could end up like this and yet still be alive. But her train of thought was interrupted when Nneoma began to weep and cry. "I am sorry, Benny. I am so sorry. Words cannot explain or express how sorry I am right now. If it is about you or Frank, I have already forgiven you both," Benita said. "But I want to understand what happened to you. How did you end up like this? Where is Frank when you are going through this much suffering?" Nneoma was shaking her head. "You don't understand. You don't understand," she continued to say while crying. "Okay, help us to understand," Abel said. "That is why we are here. What can we do to help you? Tell us. And if it is something we can do, we will surely do it." "There is nothing you can do, oh," Norma exclaimed, as the burning started again. Benita and Abel exchanged surprised glances, not understanding what is happening. "Then why are we here?" Abel asked. "I need forgiveness. I want to die, oh, but I can't," Norma cried. "Benny, I can't die and I can't live. The few years of pleasure is not worth all this pain, oh. If only I had known I would remain content with what I had. I would have remained as your true friend as I was before." "Sis, I think you are confusing them more," Timothy interrupted her before the burning gets unbearable again. "Can you tell them the reason they are here? Please give her room to express herself however she likes." Benita told Timothy, "We can wait." "You don't understand," Timothy said, shaking his head. "She can't talk once the burning gets to its peak, and you both will not be able to stay. There is no more ash in the house. My mom and sister rushed out to get more. That is why they are not here to receive you people." "Oh," Benita said, even though the explanation had raised more questions than answers. But before she could speak, Nneoma began to talk. When we reconnected after school, I was genuinely happy to see you again, even though I was a little envious of your success in the career world. But I wasn't so bitter as not to be happy for you, because I knew where you came from and how hard you worked for it. But when you told me about Frank, I didn't believe everything you said, because I felt you were trying to hype him up. But when I eventually met him, and it all turned out to be true, and you didn't even say half of it, I suddenly became so jealous and envious. I didn't think it was fair anymore. I mean, I could understand your career path because you really worked hard for it. But what did you do, especially to deserve Frank after all? I was the one who helped you out when we were younger. So why was I so unlucky in my relationships and career as well? I couldn't accept your happiness anymore. So I planned on taking Frank from you. But no matter the green light I gave him, he refused to see me as a woman. Frank had eyes for one woman, and that was Benita. When I couldn't get him by my own strength, I decided to visit the Baba that one of my colleagues had told me about. Helps her to get men. The Baba gave me a substance that I can add to your food, but he said, the both of you have to eat it for it to be effective. The substance works as I desire it to. It will cause the heart of the one I desire to be turned favorably to me, and it will turn against whoever it once favored who ate the food also. Another condition is that after the consumption of the substance 3 consecutive times, the two must never meet and share a meal cooked by one person in one pot ever again, or else the flame that turned the tides against them will begin to burn in my bosom. I knew if I wanted my mission to be successful, I needed to be where you are constantly with Frank, so I can ascertain your eating and take appropriate action when necessary. This is why I cooked up that story about needing accommodation. I didn't really need any accommodation. I didn't have any issue with any roommate. I needed to be where I could monitor closely the progress of things. I used the substance I was given every 2 months so that there would be no suspicion. By the third time, Frank was already begging me for a relationship. After I had told him of how you steal from him while lying that you were giving me the money, how you forge numbers in your company records, and that you sleep with your bosses to get promoted. I told him a lot of lies about you to solidify his hatred of you. Benny, I don't know what got over me. I didn't know I was capable of such wickedness. Benita was now sitting very close to her brother, who was holding her tightly as Nneoma told her story. Please continue, Abel said, wanting to get it over with and take his sister out of there as quickly as possible. The heart of man is indeed desperately wicked. Who can fathom it? Nneoma continued after taking a drink from the ash solution beside her. I told Frank that the condition for me to accept his proposal was that he must never see you again or speak with you, and he must relocate me to another state with paid salary, house, and cars of my choice. Of course, he agreed to everything I said, because he was already completely under my control. I had waited a few months to remove suspicion, and when it was logical enough, I ran and started living my dream life with Frank. I couldn't bear to look at you always crying while I was happy. Benita interrupted her. You haven't said why or how you ended up like this. Did Frank find out and did something to you or what? No, Benny, it wasn't Frank that found out. Nemesis caught up with me. That is the only explanation I could come up with. Indeed, there is a season under the sun for everything. A time of sowing and a time to reap what has been sown. When evil prospers, it often looks like it will never fall. But the Almighty, who sits in heaven, laughs at the foolishness of the wicked, because he knows that there is a set time, an appointed time, for he has made it to be so. and no one can override his will. Benny, in the long run, everyone reaps, whether they want to or not, but everyone gets what's coming to them. Frank took me along on one of his trips because I lost my baby 2 weeks before that, so I was still grieving, that being the second baby I was losing, excluding the miscarriages. So he took me along to help me heal. But he received an emergency call from one of his branches in another city within that same country. I told him to go alone because I wasn't in the frame of mind to walk around the factory for inspection and the likes. I usually insist on going with him to these trips no matter how heavily pregnant I was, because I needed to make sure no one else played my own games on me. But that time I had begun to relax a bit, and the trip was only supposed to be for a day or two. But Frank came back the following day and told me how he saw you, Benny, in the hotel he was lodged in. But you didn't see him, and it looked as though you came for a conference or something. I was glad you guys didn't meet each other, and I forgot that morning about the food. But to my surprise, 2 weeks after we came back, Frank had begun to behave strangely. Sometimes he will wake up crying for you, or I will catch him looking at me like a stranger. I went back to the barber, and he told me that you and Frank had eaten from the same pot. I asked him how. He said that there was a place both of you were in at the same time and you ate the food prepared by one person in one pot. I was devastated. I asked for solution, and he said that the only remedy was for me to use the substance again the exact way I used it before. If not, the fire will indeed burn my bosom. There was no way I could get both of you together again, and it didn't take long before the hold of the charm faded off on Frank's mind and he left. After asking me repeatedly why he was with me and not you, Benny, he seemed to know what happened but felt powerless in the whole matter. His mind couldn't comprehend what really had taken place. So when he became free of that effect, he left and filed for his restraining order at the police station. Now him and his family wants nothing to do with me, especially as he didn't marry me legally. Benny, please, have mercy on me, Nneoma cried, concluding her story that sounded more like a folklore or one of those fictional stories acted out in movies and dramas. The room became very quiet except for the occasional moaning of pain from Nneoma. After a few minutes of quiet contemplation, Benita cleared her throat and asked, "In what way can I be of help to you now?" "Please forgive me," Nneoma cried, moaning out in pain as the sizzling sound began again. "I have forgiven you, Nneoma. Is there anything else I can do?" Benita, now feeling sorry for her former friend because of her suffering, asked, genuinely ready to help her in any way possible. But Nneoma, after a few minutes, replied, "Ask God to kill me. I have been in this torment for too long. I want to die and end it all. Please pray for God to kill me. That is what I want now." "I am sorry, Nneoma. I cannot do that for you. I have given you my forgiveness, which is what I have within my power to do, and I will continue to ask God for mercy on your behalf. I will advise you give your life to Jesus if you haven't. At least, when you do that, you will be sure of escaping the hell that is eternal, worse than what is happening right now. If there is nothing else I can do to help you, I will take my leave now." She stood up and turned to Timothy, who had tears in his eyes. I wish there was something I could do to alleviate her suffering, but her solution is not what I can give. Please take good care of her, and if you need any financial assistance, don't hesitate to call me, handing over her contact card to him. "I don't think I will come back here again. Greet your mom and your sister and tell them what happened so that they won't make a repeat visit to my parents' house again." "Thank you so much," Timothy said, his voice breaking, refusing to look up at Benita or Abel. But he did get up to see them out. On their way out of the street, they drove past Norma's sister and her mom as they carried big bags of what Benita assumed to be the ashes they went for. But they didn't stop because they didn't have anything to discuss with them. Timothy will fill them in when they get home. Benita and Abel narrated everything to their family, who were waiting eagerly for the outcome of their trip. The story left everyone in a state of shock and disbelief. It was so far-fetched that it seemed almost like a fable. But how can people go this far for mundane things? Their father pondered out loud. What is really the worth of a man's soul? It is quite unfortunate that men are blind and at best myopic, he concluded, and went into his room to sleep. It has been a long day for his old bones. Benita also left to go and sleep after their dad did. She was too emotionally drained to stay up. Sophie, who always had a wise crack for everything, couldn't utter a word. Their mom stayed back in the living room after everyone had retired to their homes or to bed, and began to soak them in her prayers. She doesn't know why evil prevailed over her child in her goodness, but she would make sure it never happened again. The family gradually recovered from the shock of Nneoma's confession, and were trying to return their lives to normalcy when Frank showed up one day on their doorsteps. He was welcomed and entertained, a bit to his surprise and chagrin. He had expected to be treated as the wicked beast that he feels like on the inside. He felt like crying, but he knew it would not help his case. Benita's parents excused themselves and went into their room, leaving the young people alone in the living room to sort themselves out. They had actually discussed this scenario after Nneoma's confession. Sophie had asked Benita, "What if Frank comes back begging to be taken back? Would you agree?" Benita had thought of that possibility, but Sophie's questions did give her reason to think deeply about it. And in the process, she was able to process a lot of things. And seeing him now, she already knows what to say to him, and it also helped her to be more receptive of him. They spoke at length, with Frank feeling so guilty and ashamed about the whole affair. Benita kept reassuring him that it wasn't his fault. As a matter of fact, if anyone was to be blamed, she should be the one, because she was the one who brought Nneoma in and gave room for her to perpetuate her evil intent. But Frank's point was that the charm, or whatever it was, may not have had such effect if he wasn't at some level open to it, because he doesn't understand how he would so completely be taken with a stranger when he thought he loved her with his life. Benita would have laughed at the whole drama if not that she knew how serious and devastated he felt. But she had tried to make him understand that in as much as the world is in denial of the spiritual and its superiority to man, it doesn't make it less powerful or real. He had wanted her back, but he felt it was too early to open the topic. For now, he will bask in her forgiveness and do his best to nurture their friendship again. Maybe sometime in the future, he will find the courage and confidence to cut her heart again. But if she will ever have him, nothing will come between them ever again. Benita, on her part, wasn't sure if she would ever go that path with him again, but she is not permanently opposed to it. Maybe it is way too early to tell, but she will keep an open mind. Frank had become a frequent presence in their house, and if left to him, he might actually pack in entirely. Nneoma had gradually become a distant bad memory that is kept hidden. Benita though sends money to Timothy once in a while without telling anyone. As for the story of Frank and Benita, will they ever be an item again and feel their initial desire to be husband and wife? That is left for them to decide. But perhaps there is a happy ending in the horizon. Hi everyone, I hope this story has made an impact. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. Leave your comments. I would like to hear your thoughts on the story. What are the lessons you have picked from it? I pray that the Lord heals every broken heart that has listened or listening to this story. And I pray that that which is yours be restored to you. May the Lord bless you all and all that concerns you. Amen. Until next time. Bye.